Hey, welcome to the Vintage Vibe.
And today we're downstairs. We're going to be spending a little bit of time at my workbench, taking a look at a real special tuner. Without any more of a delay, let's go take a peek at what we've got. So we've got a very special tuner set up here on our workbench today. It is a Kenwood 600T, otherwise known as the Supreme. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the Kenwood Supreme in general, the series, the 600 series, as well as take a look at some of the features on the tuner, and then we're going to bring it upstairs. We're going to connect it up to our main setup there, and we're going to have a little tuner shootout, which should be interesting. We're going to compare it to a Yamaha T1 that I recently had found, as well as my reference tuner, which is my Magnum Dynalab FT101A. So, to look at the tuner, it looks like a typical 1970s tuner. It's got a, that glitz and glam of the silver era. If we quickly look at some of the features on the unit, you can see here you get your signal meter as well as your tuning meter. And we're a little off-tuned here, so you'd bring this into the center, for example. And we should, if we can find a station here, pick up a stereo signal. There we go. We've just picked up stereo, and you can see here the multipath is deviating a little bit. It's moving around. Now we are in a basement. We are only connected to a 300 ohm dipole antenna, so I'm not too surprised. Normally you would use the multipath feature here in order to help you actually adjust the antenna outside and adjust this until we get the least amount of multipath deflection. Over here we can see we have a de-emphasis switch, which is usually set at 25. We've got a dimmer. We've got our wide band, which you can see represented with the green bar, normal, as well as narrow. And obviously for high fidelity, we typically have it in the wide band. You'd adjust to normal or narrow if you've got some adjacent interference from nearby channels. We've got a muting switch here, as well as a variable output if you're going to use that feature on the tuner. So there's about 14 screws to remove the top, believe it or not, on this tuner. Let's take a look inside. It is a piece of art when it comes to vintage audio. You can see it's nicely shielded, and our gang capacitor is going to be in here where the FM front end is labeled. You can see really nicely laid out circuit boards, various filters, or chips, for lack of better words. 8 gangs, which is unheard of when it comes to a tuner. Typically 3, 4, 5 would be common, but 8, we've got to take a look at this and see what this looks like. This is what an 8 gang capacitor looks like. In fact, there's actually 9. I'm going to turn on my shop light, but 2 of them are actually fused together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But it is technically considered 8 gangs. A tremendous front end on it. It should be a real strong performer, and I'll be interested to whether or not this actually outperforms the Magnum Dynalab and becomes my favorite. And it would happen to be the last Allen key to get the flywheel knob off. Extremely well manufactured, nicely machined, weighted quite well. Actually, all the knobs on it are all nice and solid, no plastic inserts. Quite something. Let's take the face off here and dig down a little deeper. Okay, so we've got this thing pulled apart. You might be wondering why. One is to show you some of the construction. So here's the faceplate. You can see it's very nice, thick, machined aluminum, very well put together. Inside, it's again a very nicely laid out unit, a good sized transformer in there, the power transformer. I like to take them apart because I can get inside and clean these pots. On this unit, you have to do that from the front side. 2, it's a good time to clean things like the faceplate all along in here. It also gives you an opportunity to clean the back side of the glass, which is just kind of basic 101 maintenance for these units. I like to double check these little solder joints on them with a magnifying glass and just make sure none of them are cracked. Ones that are cracked can be a typical fault. It's not very hard to take a soldering iron, heat it up, and just gently touch those little points to reflow that solder. But that may be something that may be outside of your comfort zone. The light bulbs, there are fuse style bulbs like this, as well as in the front you can see here these little bulbs. They're probably little 6-volt bulbs. They've got 2 leads. Unfortunately, you have to cut those leads and you have to solder new ones when the bulbs need replacement. This one here will need replacement. The filament's gone bad in it. It goes on and off. But this is something that if you can use a can of spray and spray the pots and change a couple light bulbs and clean the units and look for some cracks. Now always make sure that these are disconnected when you're doing this. You can save yourself a few dollars, and it kind of is a fun thing to do when you're into vintage audio. At least I enjoy doing it. So when we're cleaning these things, just basic soap and water mix in a bowl is easy to do. Soft cloth and just gently wipe. Don't use alcohol or anything like that. You will ruin the finish, or you can ruin the finish. And this one has engraving, but some of the units have got printed lettering on them, and it's a good way to take it right off. Same thing with getting behind the glass here. You could use a paper towel with some Windex. I prefer vinegar and water, and it's a good way to clean it up. A nice soft toothbrush works as well too. Easy way just to kind of clean up the front. And again, when the face is off, the beauty of this is we don't risk dripping any water into any of these nooks and crannies and damaging the unit. So for a few screws that you have to take off, it's definitely worth it. So you're almost done. Take a, for example, pipe cleaner, spray the ends of it with a detox cleaner. And what you want to do is slowly take the pipe cleaner and work it into your RCA jacks, as well as clean your outside. You could use a Q-tip for that as well too. Pipe cleaner works really nice in spots like this to get inside the actual 75 ohm antenna, and that way we get any of the oxidization out of those connections, giving it the best possible chance in our shootout to get a good idea of how this unit really sounds. Here's the deoxit cleaner I'm talking about here. It's not cheap stuff, probably costs you 20 bucks, 30 bucks for a container. Here's another alternative made by MG Chemicals called Electrosolve. The important thing is that you get a cleaner that doesn't leave oily residue. You don't want something like this, a control cleaner, because this has a special lube in it, and unfortunately the lube attracts dust. So now we've got the unit put back together. I mean, aside from actually aligning the unit, I mean, we've inspected it, we've cleaned it. I mean, it looks a heck of a lot better, and we've gone over it as best we can, and now it's ready to get upstairs into rotation. So join me for part 2 when we hook up the Supreme 600T and we do that comparative between the Magnum Dialab FT101A and Yamaha's T1 tuner. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy that vintage vibe.